Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Free Sports Central. Today, we're going to go over my Week 16 NFL predictions. So last week, I had a record of 12-4, and that brings my record on the season to 155-69. Kicking things off this week on Thursday Night Football, we have the Broncos at the Chargers. So this is a huge game for the AFC wildcard race, as the Broncos they're currently sitting in the 6th seed with a 9-5 record, while the Chargers have the 7th seed and are 8-6. And the winner of this game actually has a chance to lock up a playoff spot this week, as the Broncos will clinch a playoff berth with a win, and the Chargers will clinch with a win and losses by the Dolphins and Colts. But this is an interesting game. Both these teams are elite defensively, as they're actually tied for the best scoring defense in the NFL, with both teams allowing 17.6 points per game. Although the Chargers, their defense was terrible last week, allowing 40 points to the Buccaneers. Then offensively, the Chargers, they're scoring 21 points per game, and the Broncos, they're scoring 24 points per game. Although the Broncos offense has been playing extremely well, as during their 4-game winning streak, they're scoring roughly 35 points per game. But this is a very tough game to predict. Both these teams are great defensively. The Chargers are home, and I can definitely see them getting the win. But I'm going to take the Broncos to get the win. They've won 4 games in a row. Their offense is playing well, and even though they're playing against a good defense, I like them to have another good game. And I'm going to take the Broncos to get the win and clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2016. And they beat the Chargers by a score of 26-17. Moving on to the couple of games we have on Saturday, beginning with the Texans at the Chiefs. So this could be an interesting game. The Chiefs, they're 13-1, and they actually have a chance to clinch the top seed in the AFC this week, and that would happen with a win and a Bills loss. But the Chiefs, they might be playing without Patrick Mahomes, as he's dealing with a high ankle sprain he suffered in their win last week against the Browns. Although Mahomes, he has been a full participant in practice both Tuesday and Wednesday. But if Mahomes can't play, then it'll be Carson Wentz getting the start for the Chiefs. But the Chiefs, they face a Texans team that's 9-5 and clinched the AFC South last week. And the Texans, they've also won 3 of their last 4 games. Offensively for the Texans, they're scoring 23.4 points per game, and they run the ball fairly well, rushing for 111 yards per game. They face a Chiefs defense that is great, as they're 5th, allowing 18.5 points per game, whilst they're the 3rd best defense against the run, allowing 91.9 rushing yards per game. Then offensively for the Chiefs, they're scoring 23.5 points a game, and the Texans are a top 10 scoring defense, allowing 21.4 points a game. But this game is tough to predict considering the Mahomes injury, although I'm going to predict this game as if he plays. I still think the Chiefs win either way, but after Mahomes practicing both Tuesday and Wednesday, it's definitely trending in the direction where he'll play. But even if Mahomes doesn't play, I still think the Chiefs are good enough. I think their defense will control this game, and I've got the Chiefs getting the win here by a score of 20-16. Next game, we have the Steelers at the Ravens, also on Saturday. So this is a huge game for the AFC North, as the Steelers, they lead the division with a 10-4 record, and they can actually clinch the division with a win. And the Ravens, they're a game back at 9-5, although they can clinch a playoff spot themselves with a win. But this is a really interesting game. The Ravens are elite offensively, scoring 29.9 points per game, which is 3rd best, plus they have a top 3 rushing offense and passing offense, as they're rushing for 178 yards per game, passing for 245. But the Ravens, they face an elite Steelers defense that is 6th best in the NFL, allowing 18.9 points per game. Plus, the Steelers are the 4th best defense against the run, allowing just 94 rushing yards per game. Now, the Steelers defense might be without TJ Watt, who suffered an ankle injury last week and didn't practice on Tuesday, and that could be a big blow to the Steelers defense because they're an entirely different team with versus without TJ Watt. With TJ Watt in his career, they're allowing 19.7 points per game, and without him, they're allowing 26.3 points per game and have a record of just 1-10. And TJ Watt has also been great against the Ravens, as in 15 career games against them, he has 17 sacks. Then you look at things offensively for the Steelers, they're good, averaging 24 points a game, and they face a Ravens defense that's allowing 23.7 points per game. But this is a very tough game to predict. The Steelers have already beat the Ravens once this season, and they've had a ton of success against the Ravens recently, winning 4 straight games in 8 of the last 9 meetings. But I'm going to take the Ravens to get the win. They're home for this one, and I think they'll finally have a good game, and the Ravens, they beat the Steelers by a score of 24-22. Moving to the games on Sunday, beginning with the Browns at the Bengals. So the Bengals, they've won back-to-back games, and they still have a chance to make the playoffs, although they will need a lot of things to go their way. But the Bengals, they now face a Browns team that's 3-11, And the Browns, they're going to be making a quarterback switch, as they're going to be benching Jameis Winston and starting Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this move because, yes, turnovers were a problem for Jameis Winston with 8 interceptions in his last 3 games, but I'm not sure how much better Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be, as in his career he has appeared in 12 games, completed 51.4% of his passes for 540 yards, has 1 touchdown and 7 picks. Now, I do think there's a chance the Browns offense can play a solid game because they are playing a terrible Bengals defense that is the second worst scoring defense in the NFL, allowing 27.6 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Bengals offense is great. They're scoring 28.5 points per game, and they have the league's top passing offense, throwing for 271 yards per game. And the Browns, their defense isn't good, allowing 25.4 points per game. But I'm going to take the Bengals to get the win. They keep their playoff hopes alive. I think the Bengals offense has another good game, and I don't think Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the Browns offense will keep up. Bengals win 34-21. Moving on, we have the Giants at the Falcons. So the Falcons, they're 7-7, but they haven't been playing it that well lately, as in their last 5 games, their offense is scoring just 14.4 points per game. And the Falcons, they're actually going to be making a quarterback switch for this game, as they're benching Kirk Cousins, and they've named the 8th overall pick Michael Penix Jr. the starter for the rest of the season. And I really like this move for the Falcons. I'm a huge Penix fan, and I think he's going to be a great player. But he gets his first start against the Giants defense that isn't great, allowing 23.4 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Giants offense is terrible, averaging just 14.9 points per game, and the Giants are also making quarterback switch, though going back to Drew Lock after he missed last week's game with a heel injury. But the Giants offense faced the Falcons defense isn't great, allowing 24.4 points per game. But I do have the Falcons getting the win here. I think Michael Penix Jr. has a good game in his first career start. The Falcons, they stay in the playoff race and beat the Giants 27-14. Up next, we have the Lions at the Bears. So the Bears, they're awful. They've lost 8 games in a row, and they don't face the Lions, who are one of the best teams in the NFL, although they are coming off a loss to the Bills, and that was their first loss since week 2. The Lions are also extremely banged up on both sides of the ball, but specifically defensively, as they allowed 48 points last week, although I don't think they have to worry about the Bears getting anywhere near that total, as the Bears' offense is terrible, scoring just 19 points per game. And they're scoring just 14 points per game on their losing streak. Then on the flip side, the Lions, their offense is great, scoring a league high 32.8 points per game, and they face the Bears' defense that is solid, allowing 22 points a game, although they have allowed 30 points in back-to-back games. But the Lions, I think they'll get back on track here against a struggling Bears team. They'll dominate this game and win by a score of 34-13. Moving on, we have the Titans at the Colts. So the Colts, they're coming off a tough loss to the Broncos, which really hurt their playoff hopes, and they're now looking to get back on track as they face the Titans team that's just 3-11. The Colts, their offense struggled last week with 13 points and 5 turnovers, but they're scoring 20 points per game on the season, and they face the Titans defense isn't very good. As the Titans, they're allowing 27.1 points per game, which is 4th worst. Then offensively for the Titans, they're making a quarterback switch as they will be benching Will Levis and starting Mason Rudolph. And Rudolph, it's appropriate he's playing around Christmas time, but he's appeared in 5 games for the Titans, and in those games he's thrown for a little over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. But the Titans' offense isn't good, scoring just 18.1 points per game, and they face the Colts defense that's allowing 23.5 points per game. But the Colts, they're the much better team here. I think they get the bounce back win, keep their playoff hopes alive, and win by a score of 24-13. Up next, we have the Rams at the Jets. So the Rams, they've been playing pretty well lately, and they're actually leading the NFC West at 8-6 after they won last week and the Seahawks lost. But the Rams, they weren't great last week, winning just 12-6, and it wasn't pretty, but they were able to get the win. The Rams' offense is scoring 22.1 points per game, and they face the Jets' defense that is allowing 23.2 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Jets are scoring 20.2 points a game, and they scored 32 last week, which is actually the first time they've hit 30 this season. And they face a Rams defense that isn't the greatest, allowing a little over 24 points a game. I do think the Jets have the potential to make this game interesting, and potentially get the upset win, but I'm going to take the Rams to get the win. They've been playing well, and I think they win their 5th straight game, and they beat the Jets by a score of 26-20. Next game, we have the Eagles at the Commanders. So this is a big game for the NFC East, as the Eagles currently lead the division at 12-2, and they can clinch the division this week with a win. The Commanders, they're sitting 3 games back in the division, and while it seems like a long shot for them to win the East, they can actually clinch a playoff spot this week with the win and losses by the Falcons and Rams or Falcons and Seahawks. But the Eagles, they're playing really well. They've won a franchise record 10 straight games, and Eagles, their offense is great, scoring 26.4 points per game. They also have the league's best rushing offense, rushing for 186 yards a game. They match up against the Commanders' defense that's allowing 22.5 points a game, although they aren't good against the run, allowing 132 rushing yards per game and 4.8 yards per carry. On the flip side, the Commanders' offense is great. They're scoring 28.3 points per game, and they also have a good run game, rushing for 154 yards per game, which is third best in the NFL. But they face an Eagles defense that is tied for the best scoring defense in the league, allowing 17.6 points a game, and the Eagles are also good against the run, allowing just over 100 rushing yards per game. But the Eagles, they've been playing very well. I think they'll run the ball effectively against a bad run defense, and I've got the Eagles clinching the NFC East and winning by a score of 26-21. Up next, we have the Cardinals at the Panthers. So the Cardinals, they're 7-7, and they're a game out of first place in the NFC West. And then I face a Panthers squad that's 3-11, and they've lost 4 straight games, although they have been somewhat competitive. The Cardinals' offense is solid, scoring 22.4 points a game, and they face the league's worst defense, as the Panthers are allowing 29.9 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Panthers are scoring 17.6 points per game, which is 5th worst, and they go against a solid Cardinal defense, allowing 21.9 points per game. But the Cardinals, they need to stay in the hunt for the playoff race. I think they do that. I think they play a pretty good game all around. They're the better team, and the Cardinals win by a score of 23-14. Next game, we have the Vikings at the Seahawks. So the Seahawks, they're 8-6, although coming off a loss to the Packers. But it doesn't get any easier for the Seahawks, as they don't have to face a Vikings team that's 12-2 and one of the best teams in the league. The Vikings offense is scoring 26.4 points a game, and they face an inconsistent Seahawks defense that's allowing 22.4 points per game in the season, and they just allowed 30 points last week. Then on the flip side, the Seahawks offense is scoring 22.5 points a game, although quarterback Geno Smith is dealing with a knee injury, but it seems like he's going to try to play. The Seahawks offensive line is also really bad, as they've allowed 47 sacks this year, which is tied for the 3rd most in the NFL, and they face a Vikings defense that is great, as they're top 5 in scoring defense, allowing 18 points per game, plus they have a great pass rush with 42 sacks on the season, which is tied for 4th most. But the Vikings, they've been playing well, they've won 7 games in a row. I think they make it 8, their pass rush dominates, and the Vikings get the win by a score of 26-13. Next game, we have the Patriots at the Bills. So the Bills, they're coming off a huge win over the Lions, where they won 48-42. And that's not back-to-back games for the Bills, where they've scored 40 points and allowed 40 points, making them just the 2nd team ever to do that. But the Bills' offense is great, scoring 31.8 points per game, and they've scored at least 30 points in their last 8 games. Then we face the Patriots' defense that's not the greatest, allowing 24.1 points per game. And then on the flip side, the Bills' defense is allowing 22.1 points a game, although they haven't been great recently, but I don't think they have to worry about the Patriots scoring 40, considering they have the 2nd worst scoring offense in the NFL, scoring just 17 points per game. But I've got the Bills continuing to play well. They're the better team on both sides of the ball. Bills win easily 34-10. Up next, we have the Jaguars at the Raiders. So this is going to be a terrible game. We've got the 3-11 Jaguars against the 12-2 Raiders. And both these teams are just awful. Offensively, the Jaguars are scoring 18.8 points per game, and the Raiders are scoring 17.5 points per game. And both these teams are also banged up at the quarterback position, as the Jaguars will once again be starting Mac Jones, and the Raiders could have Aiden O'Connell back for this game. And then defensively, both teams are also really bad, as they're both allowing 26.9 points per game. And this is just a really tough game to predict because of how bad both teams are. The Jaguars, they've been decent recently, so I'm going to take them to win at 21-19, but this game could really go either way, considering how bad both teams are. Up next, we have the 49ers at the Dolphins. So both teams lost last week, as the 49ers lost to the Rams, and the Dolphins lost to the Texans. And because of the losses, that makes both teams extremely unlikely to make the playoffs. Last week, the Dolphins' offense was terrible, scoring just 12 points, and on the season, they're scoring 19.7 points per game. But they faced a 49ers defense that hasn't been the greatest, allowing 23 points per game, although last week they didn't allow a touchdown. On the other side, the 49ers offense was also bad last week, as they scored just 6 points, and on the year, they're scoring 22.4 points per game. But the Dolphins' defense is allowing 22.3 points per game, which is pretty solid. Now, This is a tough game to predict because neither team has been that good, but neither team has been terrible. But the 49ers, they haven't been great, but I think they're going to get the win. I think their defense will play well once again, especially now that they have Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw back. It's also the month of December, a month the Dolphins are awful in, and I've got the 49ers with the win, 21-13. Up next, we have the Buccaneers at the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. So we'll have a lot of watch for this game, starting about 8:15 Eastern Time on Sunday, so I hope to see you guys there. The Buccaneers, they're playing really well, having won 4 games in a row, and during that 4-game winning streak, they're scoring 31 points per game, including dropping 40 on a great Charger defense last week. But the Buccaneers' offense is great, and they face a bad Cowboy defense that is the third worst scoring defense in the NFL, allowing 27.1 points per game. Now, the Buccaneers' defense isn't great either, as they're allowing 23.3 points per game. And the Cowboys, they're scoring 21.3 points a game. But I think this is going to be a higher scoring game, as neither team is great defensively, and I'm going to take the Buccaneers to get the win. I think their offense has a big game. I think the Cowboys' offense will be okay. I just don't think they're doing enough to keep up with the Buccaneers. And I've got the Buccaneers extending their winning streak to 5 games and getting the win by a score of 34-24. And our final game, we have the Saints at the Packers on Monday Night Football. So we'll also have a lot of watch for this game, and that will start at about 8:15 Eastern Time on Monday, so I hope to see you guys there. The Packers, they're 10-4, and they're coming off a dominant win over the Seahawks, where they won 30-13, and they can actually clinch a playoff spot this week with a win. The Packers' offense is good at scoring 27.1 points per game, and they have scored at least 30 points in 4 straight games. In a matchup against the Saints defense, it's okay, allowing 22.3 points per game. Then offensively for the Saints, they're scoring 22.1 points a game, but they haven't announced their starting quarterback yet this week, as Jake Haener got the start last week, but was terrible and got benched. Then Spencer Rattler came in and led them on a comeback just to fall short. And there's also a chance that Derek Carr gets to start this week if he's cleared, although to me that seems kind of unlikely. But whoever the quarterback is for the Saints, they face a Packers defense that is a top 10 defense in the NFL, allowing 20.5 points per game. But the Packers, they're the better team here on both sides of the ball. I think they should beat the Saints pretty easily, and I've got them clinching a playoff spot with a win by a score of 30-17. But those are my Week 16 NFL predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications so you don't miss any of their upcoming videos. I do my best to post as often as possible. Be sure to check out the community tab of my channel, where you guys can vote on who you think will win some of this week's big game. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible. I will see you in the next video.